So
Oh, wait.
today we are going to be looking at making a Christmas wreath. And one of the things I like to do is take advantage of what's in my yard. So in February of this year, when I was pruning the grapevine, I decided I was going to make some grapevine circles that I could use as a wreath later on. And here's one that I came up with. You can see that I've just wound it around and around and around. And the first circle I've attached to itself with wire. And then as each circle comes around, I sort of twist it in and out around itself. And then I put it in an area to dry over the summer. And because I like natural things, I like to add pieces of bark or sticks from the beach to my wreaths, or little tendrils that come out. So sometimes I use curly willow and I just sort of stuff that in all the way around as well. So this is the basic for starting a wreath. So this is one that you could use using grapevine from your yard, or you could use this type of a wreath form that you could buy at a place called Michael's, and they come in different sizes. So here's a bigger one, and they come in smaller sizes too. And when you're working on these, you work so that the dip is this way. And as you're attaching the little bundles of evergreens, it supports them. But today we're going to be using natural stuff from my garden. So I think sometimes the hindrance of doing something like this is you don't know where to start. So first of all, you have to have a wreath form of some type. And then you gather together all the tools that you're going to need. So I have some pruners, some scissors, some needle nose pliers in case I have to twist the wires, and some wire cutters. And of course, there's the wire. So this type of wire, which comes like this, which makes it easy to manipulate when you're making a wreath. I purchased this last year when it was on sale at Michael's, and while I was at it, I got 2 other colors in case I wanted to get extra fancy. And the scissors, sometimes you need scissors. For example, I might want to use this laurel, but it's got bug bites. So I just trim off the bug bites with my scissors, and nobody even knows then that it's not perfect. So, or you might want to trim the needles off of something. So that's basically what you need. Sometimes when you're working with cones like this, I don't know if you can see that, but there's lots of sap on this. You can see it's all shiny here. And if that gets onto your fingers pretty soon, working with all these pieces of evergreen, your fingers start to go black and you can't get the darn stuff off. So you have to use something like WD-40 or isopropanol. So having that on hand is helpful too. So the first thing that I do is figure out what is the top and what is the bottom of this wreath. So I sort of twisted it around until it looked pretty to me. And I thought, well, I'll have the fattest part on the bottom, as you can see, and the skinniest part on top. And this is where I'll put the hanger. I'll have a hanger back here made out of wire so that I can hang this when it's finished. So the first thing that you do when you're making a wreath is gather together all your bundles. So I go out into my garden and collect all the different types of greenery. So I have things like laurel, because the laurel gives a nice, flat, shiny, reflective surface. I have fir branches. So I trim off different pieces of this fir branch. Like that. So I take one of those. Maybe I'd have the tip of this trimmed. And maybe I want to just trim the lower needles off of here so that the wire will take a good grip. So that's two different evergreens that I've got in place now. Here's some cedar. So maybe I want to add some cedar to it, making the bundle. And here is some, has a different shimmer. This is blue spruce, so it gives a different look. And then I found these, this cypress, and it has little cones on it, which is very attractive when you're doing something like this. And I start to form the bundles. I'm going to trim this a little bit too. So I've got a little bundle of greenery, and now I'm going to take my wire and twist it around. You can see that when it's in this form, it makes it easy. And use my wire cutters to trim. I leave a couple of little tails on it because I may need to adjust it later. So there's another bundle. So now when I'm starting to make the wreath, I start with the first bundle and attach it to the wreath. And I'm working, I don't know if we can see this. So I'm working sort of going outward. Now the next little bundle I'm going to attach inward. I'm going to start, once all of your bundles are made, it makes it easy to do the wreath. You just start by wrapping. So I'm going to start by wrapping this around the whole wreath, pulling it snug. And once you get going on it, it doesn't take any time at all. Now the next one is going to go the opposite way. And I'm going to wrap that around. And then the next one goes the opposite way. So it starts to give it the look of fullness as you're doing this. And here's one with some laurel in it. So you can see it gives it a bit of a shimmery look. And then the opposite way again. And maybe I want to add a cone. So here's a cone that has been wired to a little twig. And it's very firm, it's not moving. And so maybe I want to add a cone at this part too. So you can see that as it starts to fill in, and this will go all the way up to the top. And then I'll start again at the bottom, going the opposite way. So I'll start with the next ones going this way and covering them as they go up, and then a bow at the top. And I'll show you an example of what it might look like when you're completed. So here's a wreath I've been working on a couple of days ago for my daughter. And it's hard to see when we're so close like this. I'm just going to move my screen. So it's got a little bow on it as well, which is a bunch of different types of ribbon that I put together. You can see there's cones in here, there's laurel, there's 7 different types of evergreens. And this will hang on her front door. I do this for her every year. This is what the back looks like. So this will be hanging on her door, flush with the door, and looks pretty cool. I'll show you. Another one that I'm working on for myself is this one. And because I like natural woodsy type, I started with that to begin with. So I selected dried branches and a little bit of seed pods from Africa and bark that I collected on the beach. And I just interwove that on the wreath. And this particular wreath, I put together using, I don't know if you can see this, this is what I wound around it when I first made it. And that's ivy. So I stripped all the leaves off of the ivy, and ivy's very strong. It's almost like string, and you can wrap it around and around. And then when it dries, it just holds everything together. So now I'm ready to start with this and add greenery to this. And I'll do the same thing. I'll make little bundles and then add them to this. And this will hang on my front door. And maybe I'll put some lights in it too. Any questions about this so far?
Mary, those are absolutely beautiful.
Here's something else that you could tuck in. You could tuck in pieces of hydrangea that are dried. You could tuck in some sedum. So, you know, on this one that we're making now, I could put pieces of this in, and it can just be, I could just tuck this in between. Once it's made, I could figure out what else I might want to add. Maybe I want to add more ribbons. Maybe I want to add more pieces of bark or driftwood. And I can just wire them in. The same with the cones. Once you have the little stick made on the cone, you can just wire it onto it. So I hope you have fun doing your own wreath. Maybe you want to go to Michael's and pick up one of these forms and do it that way. But I do have several grapevine wreaths forms that I made in February, and they're yours for the taking.
Thank you, Mary.